Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the JMac podcast. Well, it's happening right now in the Senate. There are hearings going on with President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court, and I'm not watching. The reason I'm not watching is because I already know what's going to happen here, and you should too. I'm assuming you would know as well. The nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, is going to avoid making any statements about how she's going to rule on any possible case. Meanwhile, the Republicans and the Democrats on the committee are going to use their time to make speeches and to posture and all of those things. So in the end, we're not going to learn anything new. We do, however, have some important questions to ask, and I want to ask you to help me out. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter right now, so I will see your comments. But I have two questions for you today. The first one is, should Vice President Biden reveal if he plans to pack the court? And then we'll get to the question, should President Trump participate in a virtual debate? And both of these require a little bit of explanation, and I think that they're important questions because they reveal things about the candidates. So let's start off first with whether or not Vice President Biden should reveal his plans to pack the court. If you're not familiar with this, and I would be surprised if you're not, a while ago, Democrats in the House presented the idea that if they win the election, in order to reverse the actions of the Republicans when it comes to the Supreme Court, they would potentially pack the court, which means they could add more justices to the court. Can they do that? Well, if they control the House and the Senate and the White House, yeah, they absolutely could do that. Why would they do that? To bring balance to the court, because they believe that the Republicans have used shenanigans in order to get their nominees onto the court. First with Merrick Garland back in the last year of President Obama's term, and now with the latest nomination. So Joe Biden was asked in the debate by President Trump and the moderator, and he's been asked since, will you pack the court? And his answer is, I'll just be honest, it's ridiculous.
I'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now look, I know it's a great question, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun. 4 million or so people have already voted. They're denying the American people the one shot they have under constitutional law to be able to have their input.
All right, so let's break this down a little bit. He is outright saying he is not going to tell you his plans until after the election. What? I mean, this is an important question. It will affect the Supreme Court for years to come. And you're going to wait until after the election. Yet when it comes to voting on the Supreme Court, you want that action to happen so that voters can have a say. Well, how are voters going to have a say in you and your decisions on the court if you don't tell them while they're voting? This is ridiculous to me. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it sends a clear message that you are thinking about it. Because if you weren't thinking about packing the courts, would you have any problem saying no? Of course not. And of course the Democrats are thinking of packing the court. And I just have to tell you that will go down in history if they decide to pack the courts as one of the worst decisions ever made. Now, back when the Republicans refused to vote on Merrick Garland, I said that decision would have huge ramifications, and it has. Because here we are now, and the Republicans are trying to push through another nominee, And it has gotten the Democrats so frustrated and so upset that they are now thinking about making changes to the Supreme Court. The Republicans also got rid of the filibuster, which I said would have far-reaching ramifications as well. So here's what will happen. It doesn't take a magic 8-ball. It doesn't take a crystal ball to foresee the future. If the Democrats, if they get in power, if they decide to add more Supreme Court justices to balance the court, it doesn't take any type of special psychic skill to figure out what will happen. And what will happen is from that moment on, there will be no respect for the number of people on the courts. And when a new party gets into power, what is the first thing they will do? They will add more justices to the court in order to get the decision making on their side of the equation. And that will happen over and over. And before you know it, the Supreme Court will have hundreds of people. It'll be like the Senate, or it'll be like the House. And there'll be no respect for this court. I've told you, I think that the court has become so politicized that I think that we should implement term limits for the court. A good number that I've seen is every 18 years, and you stagger them so that every president gets an opportunity to make a nomination to the court. When the Supreme Court was set up and there were lifetime nominations, the average lifespan for individuals was like 40 years or something like that. Nobody envisioned a president and a justice having the ability to affect the country for 40 years. And I think it's become so politicized, which was the whole reason to have lifetime nominations, so that it wouldn't become politicized. But look at the madness. Look at how frantic everybody is about the courts. I think term limits would help solve some of that, because every president could have an impact and a say on the courts. So that's my opinion there. But the other thing I would say is Joe Biden calling out the Constitution, saying that the constitutionality of this demands that we wait until the election. Listen to it again, because I think it's an important point about how people play fast and loose with the Constitution.
I heard that
let's go back one direction here.
You'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. Now look, I know it's a great question, and I don't blame you for asking it. But you know, the moment I answer that question, the headline in every one of your papers will be about that. Other than focusing on what's happening now. The election has begun. There's never been a court appointment once an election has begun. 4 million or so people have already voted. They're denying the American people the one shot they have under constitutional law to be able to have their input.
Now, he brings up the Constitution. They're denying people their one shot under the Constitution. My friends, this is blatantly false. There is nothing in the Constitution about when the power of a president to nominate a Supreme Court justice and when the Senate can take that up for confirmation. There is nothing in the Constitution saying that that ends when an election starts. In fact, the Constitution makes absolutely clear that a president is a president for 4 years, not 3.5 years, not 3 3/4 years, but for 4 years. And they have all of their constitutional authority until the last day. So all of these other fabrications that are going on about how it's constitutionally required and the voice of the people need to be heard, the voice of the people was heard. And a president was elected. And that president has the authority to fulfill his constitutional duties until the day he leaves office. And if the Democrats were in power, I would say the same thing. And in fact, when Merrick Garland was up for nomination, I was very angry at the Democrats for not at least having a vote. The Constitution is clear. Now, I'm sorry that I can't pronounce your name here, but this individual says the ones packing the court are the Republicans right now. No, they're not. They're not. I'm sorry, they're not. They are simply filling a vacancy. And that's what the requirements of the Constitution say to do. They're just filling a vacancy. They're not adding additional people to the court. That would be packing the court. Now, have the Republicans, as I've said, use gamesmanship and shenanigans? Yes, they have. And I think they're going to pay a price for it in the polls. I think Lindsey Graham is paying a price for it. If you go back and look at previous podcasts, you'll see where I played Lindsey Graham talking about how if this ends up President Trump in his last year of office of his first term, that if they make a nomination, he will not vote, and you can hold those words against him. The Republicans have shown incredible hypocrisy here. And if you want to hold them accountable to that in the election, that is your choice. But to say that they are packing the courts or that they are violating the Constitution right now simply is false. It's absolutely false. As long as they can properly vet a candidate and have time to do it, then the Constitution tells us who has the authority. And that is the sitting president and the sitting Senate. And that's the way it should remain. Otherwise, we're going to start playing games with when presidential power ends. When do they have fewer powers? When does their constitutional authority run out? Well, it runs out the day they leave office. And if we start changing that, that's going to be incredibly problematic. This is Orion. Orion says Biden doesn't need to reveal anything. We know that he'll do what he'll do when he gets his turn. It's a shame the court justices are partisan and not impartial. I agree with you. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Should President Trump participate in a virtual debate? He's now trying to line up another in-person debate. This is Grace. Grace says, no, he shouldn't. Just like when you're in a Zoom meeting, you never know who is standing just beyond the monitor. To me, the whole idea that he's going to somehow cheat or use a teleprompter, I mean, come on. This is all a fabrication against Joe Biden. He was already in a debate. He already went against the president. He held himself. He didn't do any harm, I guess you would say. But what really blows my mind is the victimhood that the White House is using in talking about this virtual debate. Listen to the president explain why the debate, the in-person debate, was canceled and replaced by a virtual debate. Listen to this.
I heard that the commission a little while ago changed the debate style, and that's not acceptable to us.
Well, are you saying you're not going to participate?
No, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous. Yeah, we learned it the same way you learned it. They called up 2 minutes ago, and it was announced. And they're trying to protect Biden. Everybody is.
They canceled the in-person debate to protect Biden. Really? That's why they canceled the in-person debate? Are you believing this? Listen, this is Ronna McDaniel, the GOP chairwoman.
I think voters are very frustrated by the corrupt debate commission that they would cancel a second debate. I think it feeds into the belief that this 47 years that Joe Biden has had in D.C. is again protecting him from facing the voters. And Americans are frustrated that this election commission interfered with our ability to see these two candidates debate.
It was corruption that canceled the in-person debate. It was protecting Joe Biden that canceled the in-person debate. That's right. It had nothing to do with the fact that the president and how many people surrounding him came down with the coronavirus. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Right? This is just so ridiculous to me. And people are sitting back there going, yeah, it's corruption. Yeah. Biden doesn't want to debate him. So the debate commission, they're protecting Biden. The debate was canceled because the White House did not follow their own guidelines for coronavirus. They had several super spreader events. How many people in their administration have come down with COVID? We know that before the debate that already happened, the president did not get tested because he arrived late, and all of his staff and family members, the moment they got there, what did they do? They all took off their masks. They did not follow their own protocols. Yet it is Biden's fault, or it is corruption that they canceled the debates? Stop. This administration plays victim more than I can ever remember. And then they turn around and their supporters tell anybody who questions it that they're the snowflakes. The snowflakes are the Trump administration when it comes to COVID. And the debate was canceled because of their actions. If they didn't come down with COVID, there would have been a second debate. Plain and simple. Take responsibility for your actions. Own it. There's just no. I don't even know what to say. Your own choices create the debate to be canceled, and what do? You blame the other side. It's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. And guess what? Everybody else has been doing. Everybody else in the country, what have we been doing? Zoom calls, video conferencing. There have been virtual debates and campaigns across the country. The idea that you can't participate in a virtual debate because somehow you think there'll be an unfair advantage, just stop it. I mean, these debates are worthless anyway, especially a debate when one candidate is going to interrupt the other candidate hundreds of times. And we don't really ever get down to policy. I would actually, at this point, prefer just send the questions to the candidate in advance. Let them answer the questions pre-recorded, even off a prompter. Who cares? We're not getting to the bottom of anything in these debates anyway. I mean, I'd said after the first one, they're just a waste of time. So, again, playing the victim, once again, everybody's out to get you, has nothing to do with your own personal choices or actions. Just stop. I mean, in this case, we're watching both sides just make ridiculous statements and attacking the other side. Oh, partisanship at its finest. This is Orion again. He says, I would have had more respect for Senate Republicans if they would have said in 2016, we're just going to what we want because we're in control, and that's it. I agree. We're just going to do what we want because we're in control. Instead, they made up crazy rules that they aren't even going to follow. I agree. I said exactly the same thing at the time. Just admit what you're doing. Don't create or fabricate these ridiculous excuses about not being able to nominate in the last year, because it's going to come back to haunt you. And it has come back to haunt you in a huge way. How they couldn't foresee that is beyond me. But I think most of us were sitting back saying, yeah, it absolutely is going to happen. All right, that's all I have for you tomorrow. I've got a COVID update coming for you tomorrow. I actually became that guy. I spoke up after hearing somebody in a convenience store making claims about COVID, and I have never done this in my life, but I actually spoke up and kind of rebuked the guy a little bit. I've become the get off my lawn guy, but there's so much misinformation, so much fake news out there. It's time for me to address that. So we'll do that on tomorrow's podcast. I hope that will be at around 3 o'clock if you want to catch it live on Facebook or YouTube. At any rate, please take a minute and help me pay for this podcast. You can scan the QR code on the screen. You can become a patron. make a monthly donation or a one-time donation. Help me be able to bring these broadcasts to you every single day. That is my goal, and I would love to be able to do that. With that, I hope you have a great day. Be sure to sign up for our podcast. You can find the link to that in our social media as well.